Welcome to the History in Focus channel. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this one.
Look closely at this face. David Reimer was born a boy, but a medical accident at 8 months destroyed his genital organ. A psychologist convinced his parents to raise him as a girl. For years, David lived an imposed identity until he discovered the truth at 14. The experience destroyed him psychologically, a trauma that led to his death at 38 years old. A priest offers comfort to a kneeling man about to be executed during the Cuban Revolution in 1959. Surrounded by armed soldiers, the condemned man faces his final moments of life. The photo carries the weight of the bloody political transformations that came to Cuba during that period. Nina von Schlettbrugge poses for Vogue in 1958 with the elegance of a golden era of fashion. Years later, she would become Uma Thurman's mother. The beauty that mesmerized cameras would pass to the next generation. Hollywood didn't know it yet, but it was looking at a lineage of stars. Teachers dragged to public squares, forced to wear dunce caps, humiliated by their own students. Mao's Cultural Revolution transformed China into a nightmare between 1966 and 1976. Thinking was a crime. Teaching was treason. Millions were persecuted in one of the greatest collective madnesses humanity has ever witnessed. Wearing sunglasses and a hat, almost unrecognizable, this is the future Pope Leo XIV in a photo from the 1980s. Decades before leading the Catholic Church, he was just a young priest navigating the world with discretion. No one there could imagine that this man would one day occupy the throne of St. Peter. In 1993, Queen Elizabeth II surprised everyone by testing an SA-AT rifle during a military demonstration. Protected from the rain by an umbrella, dressed with her characteristic elegance, the British monarch showed that tradition and power could walk together. Majesty also knows how to shoot when necessary. Millions took to the streets of Tehran in 1979, demanding the end of the Shah's regime. In this photo, Ayatollah Khomeini waves to the ecstatic crowd, the religious leader who would command the Iranian Revolution and transform the country into an Islamic republic. The Middle East would never be the same. The 10 Immortals, militant abolitionists who fought to end slavery in Kansas in 1859. Armed and determined, they faced pro-slavery militias with blood and conviction. Every man in this photo risked everything for the freedom of people they would never meet, forgotten heroes of a just war. A smiling young man on his wedding day in 1955. No one looking at this photo would imagine that Charles Manson would become the leader of a murderous cult that terrorized America. The innocent face hides the darkness that would consume dozens of lives. Evil doesn't always look like evil. A sinister curiosity. The Nazi propaganda manual claimed that children's eyes instinctively looked away when Hitler approached. This phenomenon was exploited to reinforce his image as a mythical leader. Innocent gazes manipulated for political purposes. The propaganda machine spared no one. 3 men read the news that changed medicine in 1980. Smallpox was globally eradicated. They were former directors of the Eradication Program, architects of one of humanity's greatest victories against disease. A plague that killed hundreds of millions had finally been defeated. Science won. The Spanish Civil War spared no one. Between 1936 and 1939, the country tore itself in half. Republicans against nationalists, brother against brother. More than 500,000 people died. This photo freezes an instant of a conflict that served as a dress rehearsal for World War II. Thousands of people squeezed between somber ruins in the Yarmouk refugee camp, Syria, 2014. Hungry and exhausted, men, women, and children seek a thread of hope amid the destruction of civil war. Desperate gazes that seem to ask the world, "Are you seeing this?" This man fought against Napoleon. A British veteran poses with his wife around 1855, displaying a medal with 5 clasps, each representing a battle from the Napoleonic Wars. His gaze carries decades of horrors that most would only know through history books. A photo of Madonna leaving an event in Los Angeles in 2008 shocked the world. Her thin arms and face generated immediate speculation. The image went viral instantly across the internet. The Queen of Pop discovered that the body also ages under merciless spotlights. Around 1900, a German firefighter tests a revolutionary invention, a helmet designed to resist flames. At that time, fighting fires was almost fatal. Precarious equipment and zero protection turned every call into a bet against death. A Ku Klux Klan rally in Gainesville, Georgia, 1992. A child wearing KKK clothing walks away from the crowd enchanted by police shields. She touches a shield without realizing that the officer holding it is black. Innocence meets hatred and recognizes neither. Marilyn Monroe defied the freezing cold of Korea in 1954 to entertain American troops. In 4 days, she did 10 performances for more than 100,000 soldiers. Years later, she would say those shows were the peak of her life. The Hollywood myth became human before men who just wanted to go home. Vo Thi Tang smiles after receiving a 20-year prison sentence in 1968. Her crime: telling the South Vietnam judge that that government wouldn't last that long. A member of the Liberation Front, she turned her conviction into prophecy. The defiant smile echoes in history to this day. Yuri Knorozov, the linguist who deciphered the Mayan alphabet in 1953, always insisted that his cat Asya be listed as co-author. Editors would remove her name. He would get furious. This photo with Asya was his favorite for biographies. The genius who unraveled civilizations had only one partner, his feline. Look closely at this disturbing scene. Ted Bundy plays affectionately with a child, the daughter of his ex-girlfriend. The charming man everyone adored had murdered more than 30 women. Evil wore the most innocent disguise possible. The last photo of Albert Lowenstein, the third richest man in the world, boarding his private plane in 1928. During the flight, he entered the aircraft's bathroom and mysteriously disappeared forever. Door open, body never found. Murder? Accident? The mystery remains almost a century later. For 6 days in 1980, Iranian terrorists held hostages at the Iranian embassy in London. The world held its breath. Then the British SAS stormed in, live on television. In 17 minutes, 5 of the 6 hijackers lay dead. Millions watched the lethal precision in real time. Jack Bonavita poses proudly with his lions in New York, early 20th century. One of the most esteemed circus tamers of his era, he enchanted crowds with his daring performances. The ending? Tragic. In 1917, one of his own animals killed him. The beast he loved claimed its price. While the baseball game was happening peacefully, Mount St. Helens exploded in the background on May 18, 1980. The eruption would kill 57 people and devastate hundreds of square miles. This photo captures the surreal instant when the everyday met the apocalypse. Dave Shaw smiles for the camera with his diving equipment, not imagining this would be one of his last photos. The Australian diver would descend into Bushman's Hole in South Africa to recover the body of another diver lost years before. At 86 feet deep, something went wrong. Dave never returned to the surface. The man who unraveled the secrets of the universe found peace in the strings of a violin. Albert Einstein played since age 6 and considered music and physics inseparable. Both sought hidden patterns in chaos. This 1927 photo shows the genius in his most human moment. Mozart was his favorite composer. This Kiribati warrior wears armor made of coconut husk fibers and a dried pufferfish helmet. His spear covered with sharpened shark teeth. In the South Pacific, where metal was scarce, nature provided everything for war. Protection and weapons were born from the same ocean that also fed them. In the early 20th century, blind people in cities across the United States and Europe wore signs to identify their condition. Often required by official begging licenses, they were state control over society's most vulnerable. Human dignity reduced to a permit to beg for alms. A woman transports a horse inside an electric train in St. Petersburg, 1993. 2 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia was plunging into chaos. The economy crumbled, endless lines for food formed, and millions saw their lives turned upside down overnight. Al Capone, the Chicago crime boss, appears relaxed fishing on his yacht in Florida in 1931. The man responsible for the St. Valentine's Day massacre looks like just a wealthy businessman enjoying a well-deserved vacation. Organized crime also took time off. Between murders, there were moments of peace. Families have picnics in the middle of a highway during the 1973 oil crisis. Without gasoline, cars stopped, so why not enjoy the empty asphalt? This surreal scene shows how crises transform the absurd into something normal. When engines go silent, life finds other ways. During a protest against the Vietnam War in 1967, a young man challenges soldiers by offering flowers for their rifles in Washington. This image became a symbol of the pacifist movement, capturing the instant when petals faced bayonets. Peace against gunpowder, love against war. Comedian W.C. Fields transformed into Humpty Dumpty for Alice in Wonderland in 1933. The grotesque makeup took hours to apply and made it almost impossible to breathe normally. The result is one of the most disturbing characterizations of classic cinema, art that bordered on torture. Extremely rare photos of Marilyn Monroe with John F. Kennedy, May 1962. Just minutes before, she had sung Happy Birthday, Mr. President at Madison Square Garden. The meeting fueled rumors of an affair that remains shrouded in mystery to this day. Two American icons together for moments stolen from history. Surrounded by rows of saluting soldiers and Nazi banners, Hitler triumphantly climbs a staircase in Nuremberg in the 1930s. The image, choreographed to exude absolute power, represents the peak of Nazi propaganda. Every detail reinforces the cult of the leader who would plunge the world into chaos. Soviet tanks crushed the streets of Prague in 1968. The Prague Spring, a brief dream of freedom, was dying under steel treads. Unarmed civilians faced armored vehicles with stones and shouts. The world watched in silence while hope was massacred. Czechoslovakia learned that dreaming had a price. A Soviet war veteran bows before the eternal flame on the anniversary of Victory Day in 1966. His amputations tell stories that words could never express. 21 years after the end of World War II, the wounds still bled. Some ghosts never abandoned their soldiers. Muslim soldiers of the 13th of Waffen SS Handschar Division performed their prayers during formation in Germany in 1943, composed mainly of Bosnian Muslims serving the Nazi regime. One of the most unlikely alliances of World War II, history is rarely just black and white. Where once stood a vibrant city, a desert of rubble remains. The center of Rotterdam in 1940, after the debris was removed. German bombers had transformed miles of life into dust. The Netherlands would never forget the price of war. Raleigh, North Carolina, February 2014. Just 3 inches of snow completely paralyzed the entire city. Abandoned cars, chain reaction accidents, absolute chaos on the streets. For those who live where snow is rare, even a thin white layer turned streets into traps. The South wasn't made for winter. They looked like an ordinary couple, but their hands were stained with blood. Bonnie and Clyde in 1933. During the Great Depression, they robbed banks, killed police officers, and became popular anti-heroes. This rare photo shows intimacy where there was violence. A year later, they would die together in a hail of bullets. Adolf Hitler before becoming the darkest figure in history. In these rare photos, he appears young, serving in the German army during World War I. Just another soldier among millions. Nothing special about him. No one could imagine that this ordinary man would plunge the world into darkness. Between 1991 and 1993, 8 people locked themselves inside a glass and steel bubble in the Arizona desert. Biosphere 2 tested whether humans could live in a completely closed habitat, a prototype for colonies on Mars. The experiment faced oxygen crises, hunger and conflicts. The future still needs adjustments. Signs in hand, these Brooklyn students protest rules that prohibited girls from wearing pants around 1940. What seems trivial today was revolution at the time. Every girl in this photo was rewriting what it meant to be a woman in America. Sharp fangs, gothic makeup, and gazes that freeze. The 1970 Miss American Vampire Contest transformed the macabre into spectacle. In an era of counterculture and radical freedom, women celebrated the dark side of beauty. The bizarre became art, and America applauded. The first blacksmith shop in Guthrie emerged amid the land run when thousands occupied Oklahoma's in 1889. In a single day, the city was founded from absolute nothing. Tools became essential for pioneers who needed to build houses, fences, entire lives. The West was forged by hammer. Frida Kahlo at 19 defies conventions, posing in a suit in the family portrait in 1927. 2 years earlier, a streetcar accident nearly killed her and changed her life forever. The chronic pain she would carry until death would become fuel for an art that would revolutionize the entire world. Hillary Clinton doing face painting at Wellesley College in 1969, the year she graduated with honors in political science. Nothing in this unpretentious photo suggested that the young student would become a senator, secretary of state, and almost president. The paths to power sometimes begin with paint on the face. During the Algerian War in 1958, a French Foreign Legion soldier carries a starving donkey on his back. The animal was dying of hunger when it was rescued by the soldiers. Later, it became the unit's mascot with the name Bambi. In the middle of war, an unexpected gesture of humanity. An unlikely encounter captured in 1965. George Lincoln Rockwell, leader of the American Nazi Party, faces Martin Luther King Jr., the pastor who would become the greatest symbol of the civil rights struggle. Two opposite worlds face to face, hatred confronting hope in a divided nation. Maria Rasputin holds the portrait of her father in 1972, Grigory Rasputin, the mad monk who hypnotized the Russian court before the revolution. After her father's brutal murder, she fled to America and worked as a lion tamer in circuses. The mystical blood of the Rasputins ran in her veins until the end. A military helicopter dumped special fluid over Chernobyl on April 29, 1986, 3 days after the explosion of reactor number 4. The substance tried to contain radioactive particles that were already contaminating Europe. The pilots knew that each mission shortened their own lives, heroes flying toward death. The last official duel in France happened in 1967. The mayor of Marseille called a deputy an idiot in Parliament. The response? Swords drawn at dawn. As if they were in the 18th century, the two faced each other until the socialist wounded his opponent twice in the arm. Honor washed with blood, in the middle of the 20th century. Jacob C. Miller was shot in the face during the Civil War. Incredibly, he survived the wound, but carried an open wound for the rest of his life. The bullet was never removed from his skull. Every day was a reminder of the instant when death passed by closely and decided to wait. Freddie Mercury's dejected look in this photo was sold for $230,000 to a paparazzo. Taken in London in the early 1990s, the image exposed to the world the fragility of the singer who was silently facing the terminal stages of AIDS. The genius who sang about champions was fighting his hardest battle. Miss Universe of Yugoslavia poses next to a MiG-21F fighter jet in 1968. Beauty and military power in a single image. Communist propaganda knew how to combine symbols. In the middle of the Cold War, every photograph was a message. This woman wasn't just a beauty queen, she was an ambassador of a system. Barack Obama, at 10 years old with his father, also named Barack. The father left the family to study at Harvard when the future president was just 2 years old. He returned only once for this photo. The paternal absence would shape the man who would lead the most powerful nation in the world. John D. Rockefeller built his fortune on oil and ruthless methods. The first billionaire of the United States accumulated wealth equivalent to more than $400 billion in current values. Loved for his philanthropy, hated for his brutal practices, he defined what it means to be obscenely rich. This image from 1899 marks a revolutionary advance. Underwater photography. A diver in heavy suit was captured in the depths, one of the first attempts to record the bottom of the sea with pioneering equipment. The ocean finally had a face, and humanity could see it. One of the rare photos of Franklin Roosevelt in his wheelchair. Polio paralyzed him at 39, but he hid his condition from the American people throughout his presidency. In this 1941 image at his home in Hyde Park, the most powerful man in the world reveals a fragility that few knew. Before supermarket aisles existed, shopping was like this. The 1890s. A lady hands her list to the clerk, who collects each item personally. No carts, no self-service, no rush. A ritual of trust and patience that progress swept into history. Nostalgia for what we never lived. Settlers crowd a tent in California to compete for land at auction, 1904. Many bought lots based only on newspaper ads, without ever seeing the location. Promises of fertile soil and opportunities attracted crowds willing to bet everything. The American dream sold at bargain prices. Passengers and crew disembark relieved from the JL Yoda plane after being freed in 1970. The aircraft was hijacked by 9 members of the Japanese Red Army who wanted to reach Cuba for guerrilla training. Deceived in negotiations, they ended up in North Korea, where they would live in exile forever. Traveling in the 1940s was like this. The luxurious Strat Cruiser offered spacious cabins and full berths for overnight intercontinental flights. Passengers slept in real beds while crossing oceans. First class when first class truly meant something. 19th century Paris had an entire village of houses built in trees. The guinguettes of Robinson offered roast chicken, wine, and adventure in the branches. Rope pulleys lifted customers to platforms suspended among the leaves, a lost world where dining literally meant climbing trees. An endless line of unemployed men stretches through the streets of New York during the Great Depression of the 1930s, a moving portrait of the struggle for survival in one of the darkest periods of American history. Millions lost absolutely everything, except hope. Swedish actress Anita Ekberg decided that words weren't enough. Tired of photographers invading her life, she pulled out a bow and arrow and aimed directly at the paparazzo. The year was 1960, and the Hollywood diva showed that beauty and fury could walk together. The photographer got the photo and almost took an arrow. A young Liam Neeson with his 3 sisters in 1960, outside the family home in Ballymena, Northern Ireland. Nothing in this photo suggests that the boy would become one of the most respected actors in Hollywood. The Irish roots that shaped his character are all here in black and white. Where there should have been well-kept lawns, makeshift shacks emerged. Central Park in New York during the Great Depression in 1933. Thousands of unemployed built camps in the heart of Manhattan. The richest America in the world had citizens sleeping outdoors. Prosperity turned inside out. The daughters of Tsar Nicholas II with shaved heads in 1917. Anastasia, Tatiana, Olga, and Maria had lost their hair in clumps due to severe measles. Months later, the entire family would be executed by the Bolsheviks. This apparently innocent photo hides the tragedy that was already approaching. Nixon and Khrushchev argue heatedly in a model American kitchen in Moscow, 1959. The kitchen debate happened during an exhibition in the middle of the Cold War. While they talked about appliances, the world was on the brink of nuclear apocalypse. In the background, a young Brezhnev observed every word. John Lewis holds his bleeding head during Bloody Sunday, March 7th, 1965. He had just crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, when state troopers attacked the peaceful protest. The future congressman paid with blood for the freedom of millions of Americans. This man tries something the war took from him, an arm. The Latvian Red Cross orthopedic workshop made handcrafted prosthetics for combat amputees, rudimentary pieces of wood and leather that represented the difference between total dependence and a threat of dignity. A white child rides on the back of a young black enslaved girl as if she were an animal. This cruel 19th century portrait exposes the absolute dehumanization of slavery, where human beings were treated as toys for the entertainment of their owners' children. Newly elected mayor of Burlington in 1981, Bernie Sanders picks up trash alone in a public park. His first electoral victory, by just 10 votes, marked the beginning of a political career that would challenge the American establishment for decades. The man who wanted to change the country started by sweeping squares. Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet practiced defense against air attacks in 1942. Pearl Harbor still bled in American memory, and even convents prepared for the worst. Religious habits combined with gas masks, an image no one imagined seeing. War didn't respect even sacred walls. A starving polar bear balances on a drifting ice block in the Arctic. The melting of polar ice caps drastically reduces their natural habitat, making hunting difficult. This painful image is an urgent warning about climate change. The planet bleeds, and its most vulnerable inhabitants pay the price. During the oil crisis in the 1970s, the King of Norway took a public tram to go skiing. Like any ordinary citizen, he tried to pay for the ticket. The conductor refused the money. After all, he was the king. This photo proves that true nobility doesn't need carriages to show itself. Some of the fiercest warriors in the world were Japanese. The Onai Bugeisha, female samurai, fought with a light sword called naginata. While the West restricted women to domestic roles, in feudal Japan they defended territories and died with honor alongside men. Two psychologists in the 1930s did the unthinkable. They raised a baby chimpanzee alongside their own baby, Donald, to see if the ape would develop human behavior. The experiment was canceled when Donald started imitating the chimpanzee instead of the other way around. Science sometimes crosses limits it shouldn't. James Dean poses inside a coffin for an artistic photo session in February 1955. 7 months later, he would be dead, at 24 in a brutal car accident. Macabre coincidence or dark prophecy? The rebel without a cause flirted with death before even meeting it. Every mark on the skin told a story of survival. Traditional Croatian and Bosnian tattoos weren't decoration. They were identity, protection, and belonging. During centuries of Ottoman occupation, Christian women tattooed crosses and symbols to avoid being captured as slaves. Resistance engraved on the skin. Led Zeppelin rocks the Oakland Coliseum in 1977. Thousands of fans in ecstasy before one of the greatest bands in rock history. This photo freezes an instant of pure electric energy. The music that played there still echoes in generations that hadn't even been born. Martin Scorsese wears a medieval helmet next to Isabella Rossellini on their wedding day in 1979. The genius of American cinema and the daughter of legendary Ingrid Bergman celebrated the union in an Italian castle. He playful, she with a serene gaze. The marriage would last only 4 years. Lucille Ball dressed as Superman in a 1957 publicity photo. America's most beloved comedian wasn't afraid of ridicule. She embraced it completely. Decades before superheroines dominated screens, Lucy proved that women could wear capes too, a pioneer in everything, even in costume. She examines curiously this strange novelty called a seatbelt. The 1950s, and cars were sold without any protection. Dying in traffic was accepted as part of life. This simple technology, now mandatory, would save millions in the following decades. The indigenous Sami people of Scandinavia photographed in Norway in 1928. For millennia, they survived the Arctic by raising reindeer and preserving traditions that governments tried to erase. She's not wearing a costume. She became the witch. Maria Germanova disappears into her character in the play The Bluebird at the Moscow Art Theater in 1908. The grotesque makeup took hours to apply. The result was so disturbing that audiences left unable to sleep. Art that turned into nightmare. A Union Field Hospital in Michigan during the 1860s in the American Civil War. Improvised structures where doctors tried to save lives with primitive tools. Between 1861 and 1865, hundreds of thousands died. Many not in battle, but in tents like this, defeated by infections. These smiles hide years of terror. Dutch boys board the Freedom Train in 1945, finally free from Nazi occupation. Many had lost parents, siblings, entire families. The war in Europe was over, but the scars they carried would last a lifetime. Tourists and guides climbed the rocky slabs of a pyramid in Egypt, late 1800s. At that time, climbing the monuments was permitted and encouraged. Each stone step had thousands of years under visitors' feet. Today, it would be a crime. Yesterday's tourism would destroy tomorrow's wonders. These men were arrested for a single crime, loving other men. In a Mexico City police station in 1935, they posed for a photo that documented their supposed delinquency. Defiant gazes faced the camera. Decades before any rights, they faced a system that criminalized them for existing. Cats fly, water crosses the air, and Salvador Dali seems frozen in the midst of absolute chaos. This spectacular photo captures the essence of the Spanish artist's surrealist mind. Without digital tricks, the image required dozens of attempts to transform the impossible into reality. Genius immortalized in a click. The Great Sphinx of Giza slowly emerges from the sands around 1850. For centuries, only the head was visible. The body remained buried by the desert. Excavations would reveal a 240-foot monument guarding secrets of 4,500 years. The sand protected its guardian. Citroën workers gathered during a strike in the 1930s. The photo captured the determination in every face. In an era when women had few labor rights, they dared to stop the assembly lines and demand dignity. The fight was unequal, the courage infinite. Cast members of Freaks from the Ringling Brothers pose as a group in 1924. The circus was famous for its freak shows, spectacles that exhibited people with unusual physical characteristics. Considered cruel today, at the time they attracted curious crowds. Entertainment built on others' differences. Mary Wallace smiles at the wheel in 1974, and that smile carries the weight of revolution. She had just become the first woman to drive a bus for the Chicago Transit Authority. In an era when steering wheels were a man's thing, Mary proved that competence has no gender. Every mile driven was a victory. The sun disappears over Chiapas, Mexico in 1991. The photographer captured the solar eclipse in a perfect instant, light and shadow dancing over ancestral mountains. For a few minutes, day turned to night, and the world held its breath before the spectacle. Nature reminding us who's really in charge. Two people climb on the roof of a snow-covered car to wave to relatives on the other side of the Berlin Wall on Christmas 1961. Months before, the city had been divided overnight. Entire families separated by concrete and barbed wire. A desperate gesture of love in a freezing winter. Gwen Hinkle watches from the porch while her former class sings Christmas carols in 1952. Polio had confined her at home, but her classmates from Sunshine School didn't forget her. Springfield, Missouri, a scene of tenderness amid the epidemic that terrorized America and paralyzed thousands of children.